We live? Good afternoon. My name is Adam Olsen. We are in the Saanich North in the Islands Constituency Office on the second floor of the landmark building in the beautiful town of Sidney by the sea. It is March the 23rd. This is episode 6 of the Public Circle Live. And as I was explaining, and I'll introduce Alex in a minute, we are our own graphics people on this show. And so welcome, Bonnie. And this is Alex. Who are you, Alex? People are wondering.
Good question. I'm Alex. I'm a legislative intern, so I recently graduated from university, and I'm spending 6 months in the legislature, and I'm working with the Green Caucus for the session, so from February through to the end of May, and this week I'm in the office with Adam. So
I thought, why not just ask you if you wanted to join us for this week's episode of the Public Circle. And I would just say, actually, before we continue, I need to apologize because I promised that this was going to be a weekly show. And last week I was in Vancouver for a committee meeting. We were in the middle of deliberations. I couldn't get out of that committee meeting, and so it's a weekly show, but we missed a week. And that's not acceptable in a weekly show. People, grow accustomed to joining us, and so I apologize for it. And we're going to do better next time. This time, actually, this week.
Here it comes.
So what's it been like working in the legislature?
Oh, it's been exciting. It's been really, really cool. I studied political science, but nothing can prepare you for working in that setting and seeing it all in action. And it's just been really impressive to see how hard everyone works and how genuine everyone takes it. It's a really cool environment.
Pretty passionate place. We can go from the lows where it's just kind of people in their office spaces answering emails to really high emotionally charged atmosphere with decisions that are coming down or briefings that are happening that are not maybe going as well or maybe better than we had thought. So you see a full range of emotions in that place for sure.
Absolutely.
Anything else about the job that maybe caught you off guard or something that you didn't expect was going to be that way? I mean, you've been around there now for a while, so.
Yeah. Andrew is a very loud guy, so never ceases to kind of surprise me when he walks into the office and announces his presence.
Yes, Andrew has a presence, that's for sure. He's one of those wear his emotions on the sleeve. I say this on a regular basis. One of the best things about working with Andrew Weaver is if you want to know what he thinks, just ask him.
Yeah.
Because he's going to tell you what he thinks. And in politics, in many cases, I think politicians have been questioned about whether or not they're saying what they're saying because that's what the public wants them to say, or they've pulled certain messaging, and that's a popular opinion, so that's the opinion that we carry. One of the things about working with Andrew that we know is that he says what he believes, and he's very passionate about it. And I think working with him as a politician, that is something that I really, really appreciate. If I ever want to know what he thinks, I just ask him.
Yeah,
and he tells me.
Or don't ask him, and he'll just tell you anyway.
Yeah, that's right. So you want to get a hold of us? You want to hold this?
Yeah.
Oh, you're the first guest to ever hold one of these. So what does that say? It says you can visit our website, adamolsen.ca. You can email my office, which a lot of people have done over the past few days on a number of issues, adam.olsen.mla@ledge.bc.ca. And there's another really cool one here, too. This is how you can get a hold of us on social media. You found us on Facebook, /Olsen4MLA on Facebook. You can tweet at me or tweet with me at Adam P. Olsen. And you can find us on Instagram, that is, Adam Philip Olsen. Had I had some foresight, I would have made all of these exactly the same, which is what they tell you should do, but I didn't, so it's okay. We've got 3 topics that I'd like to cover today. Alex is going to be very opinionated. He promised that he would be very opinionated, and then I reminded him that he needs to get employed at some point in the future, so
that's the dream.
I'm happy to provide my insight. Do you have any insights as to the LNG plan as you saw it come out? Do you have any questions? Do you want to ask me questions?
Yeah, I mean, what's going on with LNG? Like, all I know is it's this fracking, right? That's LNG. It's this really dangerous for the ground thing, and you poll British Columbians and they say, "Oh, we're okay with LNG," but you poll British Columbians and they say, "Oh, we hate fracking." So, like,
well, you need to get the natural gas somehow, and that's the way that we're doing it. I mean, look, yesterday the government announced a $6 billion tax break for LNG Canada. And this is a bigger tax, as people have been saying. It's a bigger tax break than the BC Liberals were willing to give their pet industry. They promised that this new LNG industry that the increased carbon tax wouldn't be applicable to them, which is that's exactly why you have a carbon tax, is to make sure that the biggest polluters are paying for their share of the pollution. And so, that's problematic. Most of this, they keep talking, and I think the biggest challenge that I have with the way that they're talking about this industry is that it's going to be a $40 billion investment in British Columbia. And I want to be very clear. Most of the investment that's happening is going to be happening is money that's going to be spent in Asia. Because one of the pieces of the puzzle here was that the federal government is going to allow the steel from Asia to come in on this project, so that they're not going to have to pay the duties on the steel. That's the gift that the federal government gave. After the Prime Minister, by the way, was after the minister was in Hamilton, promising to stand up for steel workers. A couple of weeks later, no duties on steel. So this project, majority of the investment is going to happen in Asia. It's going to be built in components, just like Lego. You build big Lego chunks, and then you could build a little Lego barge, and you could put your little Lego chunks on that barge and bring it over to Kitimat. And then, maybe about a $6 billion, maybe a $7 billion investment. It's still a lot of money, but it's not the $40 billion that we keep hearing about.
So, Adam, what you're saying is that we're hearing $40 billion is being invested in British Columbia. Mm-hmm. That's $40 billion worth of jobs and everything else.
Right.
But what you're saying is that most of that $40 billion is going into Korea's or wherever it's being actually
Correct.
Manufactured, somewhere else. That $40 billion is not an investment here.
Part of it is. And I want to be clear about that. Part of this is an investment in British Columbia, but it's not $40 billion. And this is, to me, this is the most disappointing thing about, you say, what have you learned when you come in? This is the most disappointing thing about politics for me, is that the entire picture is not always told. It's okay to say that this is a project that's going to spend $40 billion. It's not okay to say that it's a $40 billion investment in BC, because that's, from my understanding, and I've been briefed on this, it's not the case. So let's say what we actually know to be true, and that is that there's going to be a $6 billion or $7 billion investment in British Columbia. But we also just gave a $6 billion tax break to them in order to attract the industry here. I got real problems with this industry, obviously, but I have real problems with the way that this NDP government's trying to attract this industry, this investment. To me, it feels like, they're, to a certain extent, they're trying to get it because Christy Clark and the Liberals weren't able to get it. So it's unfortunate. I will say, though, people have been asking, what does this mean about the agreement between the BC Greens and the BC NDP? We promised in the Confidence and Supply Agreement to stand by our plan and the NDP's plan to meet the legislated targets set out for 2030 and for 2050, and that is what is in our Confidence and Supply Agreement. Basically, the government, we're missing those targets already. The government is now allowing, another 6 or 4 or 8, whatever the number is, 10 megatons of GHG emissions on top of what we're already missing. As Andrew Weaver puts it, the NDP are going to need magic in order to be able to meet those targets. And so we've promised, and we were in a press conference yesterday to say that, look, what's most important for us is that plan. The government promised to bring it in the fall, and so we'll see what that plan says. But right now, confidence is shaken, and I don't mind saying that. You got to do what you say you're going to do.
So, Adam, is LNG in the confidence and supply agreement?
Not like that. The climate plan is in there.
But the climate plan is.
Yeah, and LNG is going to be one of the biggest emitters, and with the amount of GHGs that they're going to put into the environment, basically that means established 80-90% of established business and established emissions that are already emitters that are already emitting, businesses that already employ people are going to have to pay the price because we want to attract this LNG industry for some reason.
So what you're saying is...
Or not we, the government.
Yeah.
I don't. The government does.
So you'd be reasonable and say, okay, it might be possible in some world to hit the climate targets while also having an LNG industry, and if they can prove that they can do that, then you're okay with LNG. But they have to prove that, and that's what it all hinges on.
Good question. I think that there's probably some layers of complexity which, in future shows we'll get into. Just around, what are the stages? How are we evaluating the effectiveness? Do we actually mean it? Unfortunately, the confidence that I have right now is that there's some lack of confidence that I have that when we sign an agreement that says one thing, we put a plan together. Is it just going to be a plan that sits collecting dust on a shelf, or is it something that we're actually going to follow through on? Are there measurables and ways for us to evaluate our success? And more than that, is there accountability measures? Because frankly, we need way more accountability measures in our government. We need to move on because we promised.
We did.
15 minutes.
Yeah.
I think we've probably already burned 14 minutes.
Now we're good.
What are we at?
11 minutes.
Oh, we got to keep moving, don't we? You're watching The Public Circle live. It's Friday, March the 23rd today?
Something like that.
3rd. Well done. And, wow, springtime is here.
No.
You can reach us at adamolsen.ca. adam.olsen.mla at ledge.bc.ca is the way that you can email us. You can call us, and I don't have a beautiful little thing for that. You can call us at 250-655-5600. You can visit my office at 2506. It's room number 215, second floor of the Landmark Building in Sidney, 2506 Beacon Avenue in the lovely, most beautiful town of Sidney by the sea. Second issue, Salt Spring Island.
Yeah.
What'd you think? Your first visit yesterday?
It was great. So on Wednesday, I got to accompany Adam on a trip to Salt Spring Island. It was the first time I'd been, and Adam took me on a little tour of this beautiful island that is located right in his constituency.
One of, 5 or 6? Six, I think. 5. 6.
It's your place.
Piers Island.
Yeah. There you go.
Is included in that. And you got to see Piers Island from the ferry on the way back. Good first impressions of Salt Spring. Very passionate place.
Very passionate place. Yeah. Lots of amazing people who love the place they live, and will stick with it, even if there are
Thanks for joining us from Piers Island today. And by mentioning Piers, we got another viewer, and then we just lost 2. So there we go. Anyway, so tell me, what was the number one thing that we heard on Salt Spring yesterday, and what was your impression of it? We've talked about this quite a bit over the last few weeks.
Housing. Still go.
Oh, that was Emily, my lovely wife, calling me. Sorry about that. We got a little interrupted, but anyway. Housing.
So, number one issue in Salt Spring was housing. We met with a bunch of people about a bunch of different issues, but housing came up every single time because and it's an issue across the board from people from every walk of life. They have something is going wrong with housing.
One of the, we've been hearing from Gulf Island residents about. We've been hearing all housing on every demographic in the Gulf Islands is a challenge. And part of the challenge of this job is navigating the correct policy to deal with the problem, and not just throwing a wet blanket over top of everything and saying, look, the problem's fixed, because you end up having unintended consequences. I think the government's learned of the unintended consequences that come with having a blanket. One of the most fascinating things that we heard yesterday was, so how are you? I'm great. It's Salt Spring. How could we not be great? And then we sat down and talked, and we literally heard the challenge of housing, the challenge of skilled workers on the island being able to find a house, families not being housed. And then later on in the afternoon, we went to Moby's and had a conversation, and we heard the other side of it, which was from the real estate perspective and the challenges that are there. So it's complex. It's complex. It's tough. And I think that in many respects, the taxation policies that the government put forward need to be fixed. But as well, we also need to fix the other side of it, which is the supply side and finding people housing.
Absolutely.
It was fascinating. Every single person we talked to, eh?
Yeah. I don't think any of them were supposed to be, or specifically about housing, but every single one came up with housing.
That's exactly. None of the meetings yesterday were about housing until we had the meetings, and then every one of them was about housing. So I just want to say to the people on the Gulf Islands, we hear it. We hear what you're saying. We have I have a ton of sympathy for it, and I'm working to try to find the solutions. So, again, one final, maybe that was it. Maybe we covered it. Maybe all I have to do now is pitch what's going on tomorrow. So what's going on tomorrow is our Transportation in the Capital Regional District Community Dialogue in our office here, office number 215 at 2506 Beacon Avenue in the lovely seaside village of Sidney. This is your first time in Sydney?
It is.
You're
my
staying
first time
here
in Sydney
for this week. What did you think?
It's beautiful. It's just a wonderful little town.
It's nice, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it too. So tomorrow we're going to be talking transportation in our beautiful riding, from transit to increasing traffic on the highway to ferries to road deterioration in the Gulf Islands. There are many, many transportation challenges, not only in our riding, across the region. You're from the Lower Mainland. There's transportation challenges there.
Two, yeah.
So we're going to 10:30 a.m. tomorrow in our office here in Sydney for our regular monthly, I'd say, but monthly dialogue, community dialogue. Come in. We're going to have a conversation. Want to hear about the challenges, but I also want to hear what your ideas are and how we can improve the transportation network in our riding. Alex, do you have any final thoughts about your debut participation in our Public Circle Live?
Well, it was really cool to participate in it, and I love to see you're reaching out to your constituents through Facebook, and I'm sure there's lots of great comments there. It'll be great to see what people have to say afterwards.
I'll be scrolling through them.
Yeah.
Hi to everybody that joined us. Thank you very much for taking time on your Friday afternoon to join us. We will be back again next week, every Friday afternoon at 4:30 p.m. here on Facebook. This is the Public Circle Live. Sarah Miller is watching. You know Sarah Miller.
Yeah.
Sarah Miller is one of my favorite people who work with us in the legislative office. Hello, Sarah. You want to get a hold of us? Check us out. AdamOlsen.ca is my website. I've got a ton of blog posts, all the videos from my work in the legislature, even one piece that Alex wrote on agriculture and what was it? It was Salt Spring Island, the route.
Farm Trust.
The Farm Trust, Salt Spring Island Farm Trust. Adam.olsen.mla@ledge.bc.ca. If you have anything that you'd like to talk to us about, send us a message. We'll get back to you quickly. If you want to call our office, you can call us at 250-655-5600. You can come visit us at office 215 at 2506 Beacon Avenue in Sydney in the Landmark Building on the second floor next to the dental offices. Thanks a lot for joining us this afternoon. Hope to catch up with you next week. Alex, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So until next time, everybody, Hayekwa. I'm the cameraman as well.